From the very beginning, the life of Jean-Claude Van Damme did not look like the story of a future action superstar, but more like the struggle of a quiet, shy, and physically weak boy trying to find his place in a tough world. Born and raised in Brussels, he grew up as a timid child who often felt overshadowed by the louder and stronger kids around him. His thin frame and lack of confidence made him an easy target, and he often found himself isolated, spending much of his time imagining a world where he was strong, capable, and admired. His parents realized that his sensitivity and lack of physical strength were affecting him deeply, so they enrolled him in martial arts classes to help build his confidence. This decision changed the direction of his entire life. Martial arts introduced him to discipline, focus, and the idea that transformation was possible through hard work. Even though he struggled in the beginning, he kept pushing himself because something inside him believed that he could become more than the quiet little boy people saw. As he trained, he discovered a natural rhythm in movement, and he developed an obsession for improvement. Day after day, he practiced kicks, punches, stances, and forms, slowly forging a stronger version of himself. Alongside martial arts, he began studying ballet, a fact that many people found surprising. But he understood something they didn't. Ballet demanded balance, flexibility, and precision, attributes that later became trademarks of his fighting style. It strengthened his legs, increased his agility, and gave him an elegance that would set him apart from every other action star of his time. Through years of relentless work, he earned his black belt in karate, became a competitive fighter, won matches across Europe, and developed a reputation as a serious martial artist, not just a hobbyist. By his late teens and early 20s, he was running his own gym, training others, and building a comfortable life. Yet deep inside, he felt that Belgium was too small for the dreams he carried. Hollywood was calling him, and he knew he had to go. With almost no money and barely any English, he traveled to the United States with a bold dream, but no guarantee. The reality he faced was harsh. Los Angeles was filled with thousands of people just like him, struggling, auditioning, and hoping for a big break that almost never came. To survive, he took any job he could find, washing dishes, delivering pizzas, working as a driver, cleaning gyms, and even sleeping in the back of cars when he couldn't afford rent. But even in the middle of hardship, he never lost sight of the vision he carried. He trained every day, stretching on sidewalks, practicing spins and kicks in parking lots, telling himself that one day, somehow, someone would notice him. He visited studios, handed out photos, talked to producers, and introduced himself to anyone who would listen, even when most dismissed him instantly because of his accent, his lack of experience, or simply because Hollywood was already filled with action stars. Then came the moment that changed everything. He managed to meet producers connected to a low-budget martial arts film called Bloodsport. It wasn't a major studio project, and nothing about it guaranteed success, but for him, it was the opportunity he had been waiting for his entire life. He performed moves in front of them with such precision and intensity that they were stunned. His flexibility, speed, and iconic flying kicks made him impossible to ignore. When Bloodsport was finally released, he had no idea it would explode the way it did. The movie became a global hit, especially among young audiences who had never seen such fluid martial arts on screen. Jean-Claude didn't just fight, he performed. He moved with the grace of a dancer and the power of a trained fighter, making every scene unforgettable. Overnight, he transformed from a struggling immigrant into the world's next action hero. Success didn't stop there. The momentum of Bloodsport pushed him into more films, and soon Kickboxer arrived, showcasing his emotional range, physical ability, and signature style that combined ballet-like elegance with lethal martial arts strikes. The slow-motion kicks, the splits, the intense training montages all became part of the Jean-Claude Van Damme legend. Throughout the early 1990s, he rose to stand shoulder to shoulder with some of Hollywood's biggest names. Fans loved the purity of his fighting style, the honesty in his performances, and the unique charm that came with his accent and his personality. He was no longer the quiet, insecure Belgian boy. He had become a global icon. Yet with fame came pressure, and behind the camera, cracks were beginning to appear. Offers poured in, schedules became overwhelming, and everyone expected him to do more, earn more, and produce more. He pushed himself relentlessly, working film after film without rest, trying to meet the demands of a world that never seemed satisfied. But inside, he knew something was slipping. By the mid-1990s, the pressure of fame, exhaustion, and the chaotic environment of Hollywood began taking a toll on him. He was caught between the boy he used to be and the superstar the world wanted him to be. He struggled emotionally, mentally, and physically, but didn't yet understand the full extent of what he was facing. His personal life became complicated, his relationships strained, and the once clear path in front of him began to blur. Studios demanded perfection, audiences expected greatness, and somewhere in the noise of success, he began to lose himself. And this is where the second part of his journey truly begins. As the pressure built and the demands of Hollywood intensified, he found himself slipping into a darker phase of life. The fame that once felt like a dream now felt like a trap, and the constant expectation to be stronger, faster, and more impressive than before began eating away at his peace. In the mid-1990s, he turned to unhealthy coping mechanisms, trying to maintain the unstoppable image the world expected of him while dealing with the emotional weight he had been carrying for years. The constant cycle of movie sets, interviews, physical training, and sleepless nights pushed him past his limits. His personal life, already fragile due to the pressures of fame, became even more complicated. He distanced himself from people who cared for him, made impulsive decisions, and struggled with relationships that fell apart under the heavy shadow of his growing inner turmoil. Behind the cameras, he felt empty, caught between the character the world celebrated and the person he was slowly losing touch with. As the years passed, the issues he tried to bury only grew larger. He faced battles with addiction, emotional instability, and a growing sense of isolation. Hollywood moved quickly, and new stars emerged, pushing him out of the spotlight he had once dominated. Roles became fewer, opportunities shrank, and critics began to treat him like a fading memory of the past. For someone who had built his entire identity on discipline, strength, and rising above adversity, falling into this downward spiral felt like a personal defeat. Yet even in his darkest moments, a small part of him refused to give up. He eventually sought help, admitting to himself that the path he was on would destroy him if he didn't change. He embraced therapy, treatment, and self-reflection, discovering that many of his struggles stemmed from mental health issues he had never fully understood. Learning that he suffered from bipolar disorder finally gave clarity to years of emotional chaos, and with treatment, he slowly began to regain balance. Once he confronted his weaknesses instead of hiding them, he started rebuilding himself from the inside out. He returned to healthier routines, focused on training, and embraced a more spiritual lifestyle that included meditation, breathing exercises, and a renewed dedication to fitness. He allowed himself to rediscover the passion that had driven him as a child, the desire to move, to express himself, to perform, and to inspire. Though Hollywood's golden spotlight had shifted, he wasn't done yet. He began taking smaller film roles, not for money or fame, but to prove to himself that he still had something meaningful to offer. His humility, once overshadowed by fame, returned stronger than before, and he approached each new project with gratitude instead of pressure. Then came a turning point that no one expected. He agreed to star in a film that wasn't about kicks, punches, or showing off his physique, but about showing his soul. The film allowed him to portray a version of himself, broken, vulnerable, flawed, and painfully human. Audiences who had once admired his physical strength now saw his emotional strength, and critics praised him for a depth they had never known he possessed. It was a bold reminder that even action heroes bleed, and that true strength comes not from hiding your scars, but from acknowledging them. This emotional rebirth reignited respect for his career. Soon after, he was invited to join a major action ensemble film as a villain, a role that demanded power, intensity, and charisma. His performance reminded audiences around the world that he still had the presence of a legend. The confidence he thought he had lost years ago returned, not the shallow confidence built on fame, but the deeper confidence built on survival, healing, and growth. As the years moved forward, he became more selective about his work, choosing projects that aligned with his values rather than chasing box office success. He spoke openly about his past struggles, using his experiences to help others understand the importance of mental health, discipline, and self-awareness. Despite no longer being the young fighter who dazzled the world with perfect kicks, he remained an influential figure in the action community. Younger fighters, actors, and fans looked up to him, not just for his cinematic legacy, but for his honesty and resilience. In his personal life, he rebuilt relationships with the people he had hurt or drifted away from during his darkest years. He reconnected with family, strengthened bonds that had once broken, and learned to value peace over pressure. He embraced a lifestyle centered on balance, regular training, stretching, meditation, and spiritual grounding. His days became filled with simplicity rather than chaos. He often expressed how grateful he was to still be able to move, train, and inspire others through his story. Even today, his impact remains strong. Fans who grew up watching his films continue to admire him, while newer generations discover his legacy through streaming platforms and martial arts culture. His iconic splits, spinning kicks, and unique style remain unmatched, but his greatest achievement is no longer just the movies he made, it is the man he became after surviving his own battles. His story stands as a reminder that strength is not just physical, it is emotional, mental, and spiritual. It is the ability to fall, break, rebuild, and rise again with greater humility and awareness. He continues to work, train, and connect with people worldwide. His social media presence is filled with positivity, motivation, and humor. He shares messages about staying disciplined, being kind, and believing in yourself even when the world doubts you. He loves interacting with fans, showing gratitude for the support that never faded. His journey from a timid boy in Belgium to a global icon through fame, downfall, and redemption is one of the most powerful transformations in cinema history. And as he moves through life with a calmer heart and clearer purpose, he carries the lessons of every struggle he has faced. He proves that true heroes aren't defined by how high they kick, how fast they punch, or how many movies they star in. True heroes are defined by their ability to face their inner battles, rise from their failures, and continue forward with courage, grace, and an unbreakable spirit.